So this is in Cheli Gimel. This is the 17th Maimer. This is also the Maimer Parshas HaChodsh. This is in Vayakal Pekudei in Tavshim Zayin. It came out for Beis Nissen. Beis Nissen in Tavshim Memches. For the Stalkus Ilula of the Rebbe Rashab. Okay, so B'siyayta d'Shmaya, Shabbos Parshas Vayakal Pekudei, Parshas HaChodsh, h'tavshin mem zayin. HaChodsh hazeh lochem Rosh Chodashim l'chodshei Hashana. This month is the month of Nisan for you, is Rosh Chodashim. That's the first, the head of the month. Rishon hu lochem l'chodshei Hashana. This is the first for the month of the year. These two statements that it opens up seem to be redundant. He's repeating the same thing. He says, this month is the head of all the month. That means that it's the first. And then he says again, so Medayik Admur Marshab Nishmos Eden. So the Rebbe Rashab, Nishmos Eden, he asked the question, the Balha Hilula the Beis Nissen. The Maimer was given on Beis Nissen, but that year Beis Nissen was after Parshas HaChodsh. So meaning the Shabbos before they read HaChodsh. That's why the Maimer of HaChodsh Hazeh is related to Beis Nissen. Is related to the Rebbe Rashab, to the Yortzeit on Beis Nissen. So the Rebbe Rashab asked the question, B'mamore Dibra Maschel Zeh, in his Maimer that opened up with this opening, the Shnas Ha'eter, the year Tov Reish Ayin Aleph. We don't want to say the Ra, Reish Ayin, that's why you change it around to Eter or Ha'eter. This is Tov Reish Ayin Aleph. In the Maimer of the Rebbe Rashab in that year, he asked the question, Mashikosuv Rosh Chodashim. Why does it say Rosh Chodashim? Why does it say HaChodsh Hazeh lochem Rosh Chodashim? He says later on, this is the first Chodsh Hashana. Why does he need to say Rosh Chodashim? Seems redundant. So the Rebbe points out in the note over here that in other Maimorim the question is, why do we have to say Rishon hu lochem l'chodshei Hashana? Here he's asking, would be more fitting, it seems like, to ask the question after it says already HaChodsh Hazeh lochem Rosh Chodashim, this is the head. Why does the pasuk have to repeat and say Rishon hu lochem l'chodshei Hashana when he already said it? But the way he asked the question over here is, since it says Rishon hu lochem l'chodshei Hashana, why does he have to say HaChodsh Hazeh lochem Rosh Chodashim? And the Rebbe explains, because this fits with the answer, that's why he asks it in this way. The same question. The question seems like a repetition. Maybe b'hamaimer droshes razal al haposik. So the Maimer brings down the expounding of our sage, blessed memory, on this verse. HaChodsh Hazeh lochem Rosh Chodashim ze Nisan ve'ein achar Nisan. This is Nisan, and there is not something else Nisan, which means like this. There explains that this has to be HaChodsh Hazeh lochem Rosh Chodashim is telling us another halacha. Is telling us this month has to be the Rosh Chodashim. This is the Nisan. Ve'ein achar Nisan. What is he saying here? Shehigia yoim sheroi liyos Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Once the day that is fit to be Rosh Chodesh Nisan, It has to be Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Ein ma'abrin es Hashana. We won't make a leap year, meaning sometimes we put in an extra month. If you need to adjust the year so that the Yom Tov comes out, the various different considerations, but once you came to Chodesh Nisan, that remains Rosh Chodesh Nisan. That stays. We cannot anymore put in another month and push off Rosh Chodesh Nisan or the month of Nisan to the next month. We don't do that anymore. And the Maimer continues. The Mepasik Zel Meidim Gam She'ein Ma'abrin as a Chodesh. That we don't make the month longer, like we add a month to the year. We won't add a day to the Chodesh. The Ma'abrin as a Shona L'Tzorech, Ve'ein Ma'abrin as a Chodesh L'Tzorech. That we can be ma'aber from the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, that you can make an extra year, you can make it bigger by adding a month when it's necessary, but you will not make a chodesh longer if it's necessary. You're not going to add the day l'tzorech. A chodesh hazeh lochem rosh chodashim. It has to kshegia yoim Sheroi liyes Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and when the day that is fit to be Rosh Chodesh Nisan, ein me'abrim gam es Hashana. You can't make also the Shana. You can't make the day, and you can't make the month. At that point, it all stays the same, meaning Rosh Nisan and the Rosh Chodesh Nisan is exactly on the day when it came out. There's nothing to add. So to understand this, the connection, what does it mean in Ruchnis and Yonim Eim Arbin Chodesh Magdim B'Hamaimer? So he introduces in the Maimer the Tzorich Lahavin. We need to understand Mipnei Ma Nemra Parshas HaChodesh Davke Miyad Achrei Yitzias Mitzrayim. Why does the portion of HaChodesh, why was it said immediately after they went out of Mitzrayim? And the Rebbe will say later in the Maimer, in reality, it was said before they went out of Mitzrayim. This was still why the Parsha Chodesh was said while they were still in Mitzrayim. But what he means, Miyad Achrei Yitzias Mitzrayim, as the Rebbe will explain, means after what happened in Mitzrayim, not in the Parsha, because first they went out of Mitzrayim, and then is the Parshas HaChodesh was written. And we'll see, the Rebbe and the Maimer will address it. But the question is, why is Parshas HaChodesh immediately after Yitzias Mitzrayim? So he explains in the Maimer, the Parshas HaChodesh, he Iker HaScholas HaTorah. That the Parsha of HaChodesh is the main opening, the beginning of the Torah. The Torah technically starts with HaChodesh Hazeh, Kameshikosu Rashi. Like Rashi writes in the very beginning of the Chumash, the Loi Hoya Tzorich Lahaschil as HaTorah Ela MaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, that he should not have started the Torah from HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem. That means that the real Torah begins from HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem. He explains why it started from Bereshis, but we see that the Torah should start. Uma sheposach b'Bereshis, and the fact that he opened up with Bereshis, who mishum koyach masav higid lama gomer. That is because the Eibishter wants to tell us the power, to tell his people about his power, that he created the world, etc. But the bottom line is, we see from here that the Torah really begins with Parshas HaChodesh HaZelochem. Hainu, that means the Bahaparshi is Shelifnei Parshas HaChodesh, in the portions that precede the Parshas HaChodesh. All of the Torah Breishis don't medubar bahagiluyim shabaylomis. That discusses the revelations in the world. And umeparshas HaChodesh ve'elech maschil be'inyan hagiluyim de Torah. And from the portion of HaChodesh and on, over there it starts the revelations of Torah. This is a higher gilui than that in the world. The giluyim of Torah are a higher gilui than in the world. They sheyuchal liyes hagilui de Torah. In order for it to be able to have the revelation of Torah, hutzrach liyes techila ha'achona, the Golus Mitzrayim, v'Yitzis Mitzrayim. So first, you needed to have the preparation of the exile of Egypt and the exodus of Egypt. In order to get to the revelation of HaChodesh HaZelochem, that it's the Gilui of Torah, you needed to go through the exile of Egypt and also the exodus of Egypt. B'zehu, this is that immediately after going out of Egypt, which is preparing for Matan Torah, Nemra Parshas HaChodesh, Parshas HaChodesh was said, Hascholas HaGiluyim de Torah. That's the opening, the beginning of the revelation of Torah. So why does HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem Torah start after Yitzias Mitzrayim? Is because after Yitzias Mitzrayim provided the preparation so that we can get the Gilui of Torah. So the way to get the Gilui of Torah was first to go into Mitzrayim, then to go out of Mitzrayim. And therefore, HaChodesh Hazeh, which is the beginning of the Gilui of the Torah, that's went with Matan Torah, but the beginning starts with HaChodesh Hazeh. We start right away once we got out of Mitzrayim. So now we know that we have the Giluyim of Torah, which are higher than the Giluyim of the world. So the Rebbe is going to explain that in the Maimer, in order to appreciate what the Giluyim of Torah adds later, we have to first explain the Giluyim of the world, and then we'll see how the Giluyim of Torah is even higher. Base. In order to explain the great advantage of the revelations of Torah, so in the Maimer, he explains first the elevation of the revelation that is in world, and then we explain the revelation of Torah. The revelations that is in the world is higher than the world itself. So when we talk about Gilui in the world, that's higher than the world itself. It's a Gilui in the world. The Olamais heim b'medida v'hagbala. The worlds are measured and limited. And this is in all aspects, physically, by us, and also on a spiritual level, they're measured. Just just as the heavens and the earth below, Sheba'olam Haza Hagashmi, in our physical world, Hem b'medida v'hagbala, are with a measure and a limit. We say that Meha'aretz l'rakia mahalich tovkuf shana. To go, the Gemara says, from the earth to the heaven to the sky takes 500 years. Then it says how thick the thickness of each of the 7 skies. The Gemara says there how big it is, how thick it is. So we see it's measured. It's a limit. So this is in the physical world, the Eretz and the Shamayim are limited. The physical Eretz Shamayim. And likewise, Hugam b'negeya l'shamayim v'oretz shebe'olamos b'yah haruchnim. Same thing is as it's negeya, as it pertains to the heavens and the earth, which are in the worlds of Bri Yitzira Asiya, the spiritual level, not the physical, but even the spiritual. The bottom line is shehem b'medida v'hagbala, that they're measured and they're limited. Where does this limitation, the root for the limitation of Briya Yitzira Asiya, for the world itself, that comes from the vessels of Atzilus. The vessels of Atzilus bring about the limitations of the spiritual worlds B'yaharuchim. Move on. So from this we understand, since we're saying that they're the root of the limitation, Shagam HaKelim Atzilus, that also the Kelim and Atzilus im hayosom elokus. So still, even though they are godly, heim bechinas gevul, they're still in a level of limited boundaries, because they create their deshoirish for medida v'agbola in the biyah. So the kelim, which are deshoirish for limitation, means that they too, the kelim, while they're godly because they're in atzilus, but they're still limited. They're still gvul. So that's the oilamas itself. That's the kelim of atzilus, all a level of limitation. It's not gilui. Then we have the gilui in the world, as opposed to the revelation that comes in the world. So now we're talking about hainu ha'oir. You have the kelim and you have the oir. The oir is oir hakav shenimshach bahem. That's the light of the kav that extends into the world. The sharshay, where does that come? Hu me'atzmus ein sof shalifnei hatzimtzum. That comes from the essence of the ein sof, which is before the tzimtzum. Hu b'bchinas b'li gvul. It's a level of b'li gvul. The oir that comes down is limitless. The oilam itself, the kelim, come from the kelim of Atzilus and they're limited. The gilui in the oilamos, that comes from the kav, and the kav is rooted in lifnei atzimtzum. That's a level of bligvul. But when the kav comes into the kelim, elo, the oil comes into the kelim, elo shal yidei hislabshusei b'kelim. When it dresses up in the kelim, then it is shaped and it's divided. Basically, like the keli impacts the oil that dresses up in it, that the oil should get a shape and divided, should also become shaped and divided like the keli. Okay, so that's the oil and the keli, the world, the oilamos, and the gilui. But the fact that the oil can come down to the keli and be shaped like the keli means that the oil in itself also has already that potential for that tziyur and ischalkus, because otherwise it would not be shaped and divided that way. Avol zeh shal yidei hislabshusei bekelim hu bo b'tziyur ugvul. But the fact that through the dress up in the kelim, the oir gets the shape and gets the limit, who the reason is mipnei shegam mitzad atzmai, also on itself, lifnei shenislabish bekelim, before it dresses up in the kelim, who begeder gavul, that is also in the definition of gavul. So the oir hakav, which comes down to the kelim and it gets shaped like the kelim, it is also within the confines, the gedorim of gavul. How we said that it's connected with atzmus erisof lifnei tzimtzum. No, but it comes after the tzimtzum. The mekivon sheham shachosei me'erin sof shel lifnei hatzimtzum. Since the way it extends from the Erin Sof Lifnei HaTzimtzum, he al yidei hefsek HaTzimtzum, it was through the interruption of the Tzimtzum, because first the Eberster restricted the entire light, remained an empty space, and then it was Mamshech the Kav. So there was an interruption of the Tzimtzum before your Mamshech the Kav. Hine al yidei zeh. So through that interruption of the tzimtzum, who nimdat, that gilui, that kav, bichlaluse life'erech hakelim va'olumis, it became measured generally relative to the value of the kelim, the olumis. Now it also got a limit. The limit of the tzimtzum made him a limit relative to the kelim of the world. And therefore, after it extends through many covers and parsois and curtains that are before Atzilus, Ba'kelim da Atzilus. So there were several tzimtzumim, or several restrictions, several diminishing of the light before Atzilus, and it come down into Atzilus. So the oir, the gilui, dresses up in the kelim of Atzilus, and the oir also becomes in a limited shape because of all the tzimtzumim that it went through. And through this, this is the way the Oir Hakav came down to Atzilus. But later on, from Atzilus, it extends and dresses up. There is a curtain between Atzilus and Biyah. Gam b'nivroim. It dresses up also in the Nivroim. To vitalize them with a limited chayis according to their capacity, according to their value, so that it can dress up in them. So basically, the Oir Hakav also went through a lot of tzimtzumim to come down to Atzilus, and therefore it was already shaped. It was to a certain extent limited, and then later on we can take from Atzilus to be mamshich further in Biyah through the curtain that is between Atzilus and Biyah. So the Rebbe says, Gimel v'yesh loymar, the Mashe Kosu b'Hamaimer The Rebbe explains what the Maimer says that Gilu Sheba Olomis Hu Oira Kav Shenimshal Behem. What is this Gilui of the Olomis? Before we're going to talk about the Gilui of Torah, first we're discussing the Gilui of Olomis. And we say, what is the Gilui of Olomis? Uz Hu Oira Kav Shenimshal Behem. That's the Kav that extends in them. Why is he explaining that? Hu Kedei Levair is in order to explain, before he's going to explain the Gilui of Torah, he wants to tell you that the Gilui of Olamais in itself is also bligvul. Who could they levair shagam hagilu sheba'ilam Olamais bligvul? That also the revelation in the world is also unlimited. The mekivon she'oir hakav udavuk b'mkoirei. Since the light of the Kav is connected to its source, Ba'orin Sof Shalifne HaTzimtzum, in the Erin Sof of that's before the Tzimtzum, Avshad Veikis Shaloi Hu Al Yidei Hefsek HaTzimtzum. Although the way it's connected to Lifne HaTzimtzum, it goes through the interruption of the Tzimtzum. Arehu Me'in Mekoider. It's still similar to its source. It's still a level of bligvul, v'lochein, and therefore, gam la'achrei shenislabish b'hakelim b'pnimiyuso. Even after it dresses up in the kelim, in the inner of the kelim, umechayosom, and he vitalized them, einei nitfas bahem, he is not caught up in them. It's still bligvul connected to the gvul. The oir, the Rebbe will explain, even after the chayis of the oir comes down, but it's not in a way that the chayis is caught by the creations, by the world. The world doesn't really catch it because it remains, because it's me'ein hamoyer still, because it's double b'mekoira, it's b'ligvul. So it doesn't really fit. We say that it dresses up in a pnimis. Then this that we say that the light dresses up in the kelim, in an inner dress up, similar to the energy of the soul, which dresses up in the body. That's mainly as it pertains to the kelim, which means shakelim mekablim chayusa me'or chayis pnimi. The kelim receive their chayis from the light an inner way, like the body that lives from the soul. This is not meant to demonstrate the chayis of the nefesh. It's mainly meant to demonstrate what the guf receives. By the chayis, the nefesh dresses up in the guf, but by the moshel is mostly that the kelim get their chayis from a chayis pnimi, k'moy haguf shechay men nefesh, just like the body lives from the soul. Aval b'negeil ha'oir, but as it pertains to the light, gam la'achrish and islabish b'kelim umuvdul b'hem. Even after dressing up in the kelim, the oir is still separate from the kelim. It's still bligvul. This is also true by the creations. The chayis hanivroim shebebchinas oir, the vitality of the created being that is like the level of oir, which is shahu, that level of oir, that is the vitality of creation, shahu ha'ore, the ha'ore mehakav, which is a ray of a shine of a shine of a shine of a kav. She'im hiyoyse melubash b'hanivroim, although that ha'ore is dressed up in the nivroim, hu kodesh umuvdul mehem, he's still Holy, he is separated. He is distinct. Kodesh umuvdum doesn't really dress him. V'yiseirim is, and even more than that. This is all nivroim from the light of Hashem, which is ha'ora da'ora. It's still not in a way that the oir dresses up in them. And more than that, the gam chayus hanivroim shenimshach bahem ha'oir who built a mugwal, not just the oil, but also the energy, the vitality of the creation that comes from the oil, who built a mugwal, is also unlimited. How does the built-in mugbal energize the mugbal? Well, that the Eibishter sticks together. V'chibur hachayis shema ha'oirim guf hanivroim, the connecting of that energy that comes from the light with the body of the creation, the shorsho mehakelim. The guf hanivroim comes from the kelim. And how do we connect the oil with the kelim? Uchibur shnei hafochim. That's connected, the two opposites, because kelim are medida v'agbola. The guf is medida v'agbola. The oil is bligvul, and the Eibishter connects them so that the chayis, it becomes the vitality of the nivra. So this is all talking now, the gil in the worlds. The light of the kav as extends into the kelim and into the world. And for sure, how much more so when we talk about the oil, when before it comes in the kelim uba oilumis. When we talk about before, we're trying to explain gilu oilumis, but not only talking about the gilu oilumis that actually comes down mamish. We're talking about the oil that is even before it comes down. That's part of the gilu sheba oilumis. Who built him mugbal. So still this for sure built him mugbal. Uma shenikra b'shem gevul, and the fact that we call it gevul hurak mitzad zeh, it's only, why would we call that also limited? It's only because shal yidei hatzimtzum nase boy hamedida, that through the tzimtzum, the measure takes place when it will extend in the world through the curtains and these covers. It will come down in a way that they will able to receive, the world will be able to receive. So even in the oil, before it comes to the kelim, it's also called gevul, because eventually it will come down in a way that the world will be able to receive, and that's what that's called also gevul. So this is all move on. So now we understand the great elevation of the Giluim of Torah. That's higher than the Gil of the world. That through the Torah it extends and it's revealed the essence of the Ein Sof that is before the Tzimtzum. So that's why he explained, try to go through all the levels of the Oir, which comes down inside of the worlds, which is limited. And once we see how great that limited Oir is, so when we talk about the Gilui of Torah, which is much higher, that's the level of the Atzmus and the Sof Shalifnei Tzimtzum, and we'll be Mamshich. Okay, let's leave it over here, and we'll be Hashem Mamshich tomorrow.
Yashkach, thank you very much. Have a good day.